torture 40 years.
It's about human rights, continuing violation of human rights, and we are trying to set the record straight.
Enough! Enough!
I'm honored and humbled to stand here today with family members of the Angola 3 and concerned residents from across Louisiana. We have over 67,000 signatures, petitions that were collected. We have requested a meeting with Governor Jindal, but there was no response. However, there's a small delegation of us who will enter the building and actually deliver these petitions. Amnesty International, along with the Angola 3 campaign, is calling on Governor Jindal to immediately order the remaining members of the Angola 3 to be released from solitary confinement. This is what Louisiana calls justice. Why? What is the reason? Because Alvin and Herman dared to address the brutal conditions of prisoners in a plantation prison that was considered worse in the nation at the time? That Alvin and Herman are in solitary because they dared challenge the system of sexual slavery facilitated by prisoners guards, where young prisoners were repeatedly raped and abused. They suffered 40 years in solitary because they dared to build unity among white and black prisoners alike to gain better conditions and bring an end to prison violence. This might be what Governor Jindal and Buddy Caldwell call justice, but we are here today to tell them that the people of Louisiana call this a travesty of justice. We call this torture, and more than 65,000 people in 125 countries across the world stand with us and demand Governor Jindal and his administration to immediately release Albert Herman from 40 years of torture and solitary confinement. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the unprecedented incarceration of Albert and Herman and the New Orleans Coalition to free the Angola 3 tireless efforts on their behalf. It is difficult for me to imagine 40 years in solitary confinement. To deprive any man of basic human interaction without reprieve for 40 years is nothing short of cruel and unusual. After decades of injustice, the fact that Herman and Albert remain unbroken is a testament to their unwavering spirit and the tenacity of their supporters. Every day, King, Herman, and Albert show us that the human spirit can triumph over any adversity. They are truly an inspiration to us all. I look forward to continuing to work with you until justice prevails.
This case is about perpetual violating human rights of Herman and Albert now for 40 years. So our focus is on not just the human rights violation that is ongoing, and again, we empathize, we understand that that was a tragedy that was lost in 1972, 1872. But the tragedy affected many people. It just did not impact the Miller family. It also impacted Herman and Albert's family. They have suffered too.
If I dwell on the pain I have endured and stop to think about how 40 years locked in a cage 23 hours a day has affected me, it would give insanity the victory. Around the world, people have added their voices to the call for justice, the Angola 3. I'm both honored and humbled that Amnesty International have added their voices to this call for Angola 3 and all people held in prison across America and the world for their political voices, action, and beliefs. So I push on, finding the strength you said to fight to live. Freedom for the Angola 3, power to the people, from Albert Sinclair, Albert Shaka Sinclair, Woodford. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for the petition that they had given to us for Albert and Herman. And I thank God, that so many people cared about them. I thank God for giving me the strength, although I'm weak, but God keeps me up.
To survive solitary requires a willpower strong enough to endure these state-sanctioned tortures. State and federal judges are not responsible of these illegal torture chambers and yet allow them to exist. Albert and I are not asking for justice under this present system. We seek only freedom. Your moral condemnation and the action that you take when you sign the amnesty petition makes a critical difference. We need to send a clear message to the authorities that keeping us incarcerated in solitary confinement for 40 years is not acceptable.
I do think it's time, and I'm glad that Amnesty has taken on this as a project, and that it is one that I will support as well. because I think that the humanistic aspect of this is one that, as I said, is very atrocious. It is something that we need to look at as justice needs to be taken care of, and I do hope that they will prevail in their efforts to be able to get this overturned. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate being here with you this afternoon.
40 years can't be measured, it can't be quantified. Today we call upon Governor Jindal to intervene. Governor Jindal, I remind you that you oversee the Department of Corrections. I respectfully ask that you notify DOC that they are not an independent rogue nation. I respectfully ask that you remind DOC that they must respect the laws by not torturing inmates or depriving inmates of their constitutional rights.
We will go to trial at the end of this year if we do not settle this case. Our causes of action are four. One is cruel and unusual punishment, period. Keep somebody in solitary confinement for 40 years. Two, the review process that Herman and Albert go through every 90 days for the last 40 years is nothing but a sham. Three, they're being held because they're African American. Four, they're being held in solitary confinement because they choose to speak the truth.
Today we still have the two who are still there who did not commit a crime. Who did not commit the crime. You are accused of. Sound the alarm where you live. Let where you live know it's unacceptable and you're not standing for it, and by any means necessary, we are going to make sure it comes to them. We want them to be free. Everybody say free. Free. Free at last. And they will be free. I am here to talk about what a society should and should not tolerate. We know that our Constitution does not allow cruel and unusual punishment. We also know that the deprivation of human contact constitutes cruel and unusual punishment.
40 years ago today, Albert Woodfox and Herman Wallace were accused and later convicted of the murder of prison guard Brent Miller. At their trials, multiple witnesses testified that they were nowhere near the scene of the crime. A bloody fingerprint at the murder scene that matches neither Herman nor Albert was never compared to few prisoners who had access to the dormitory. Prison officials supposedly lost important DNA evidence that could have proven Herman and Albert's innocence. Several other prisoners who served as witnesses for the state lied under oath in exchange for pardons, TVs, cigarettes, and other luxuries. Since then, Albert's conviction has been overturned twice, and the state judicial commissioner recommended reversing Herman's conviction. Yet these men still languish in prison and in solitary confinement. And this is what the state of Louisiana calls justice.
Silence has now become a sin.